we're going to find Wanda and Vision a little confused.
I think that the fans are going to love WandaVision.
Had them repeated to me a couple of times.
He puts all these Easter eggs all over the place for our fans.
That's a really good question. I think the reason fans love Wanda and Vision and their relationship so much is I think we all see couples that that complete each other, but they complete each other at really bad places within themselves. And I think that Wanda and Vision just complete each other in a really great way, and it's what makes them such a strong unit and powerful fighting unit.
I think fans love Wanda and Vision, and their sweet relationship in the same way that I do. I can't speak for all fans, but I know that when I saw those movies with my kids, who are now older, but when I saw those movies for the first time, I remember through all of that, like, beautiful mayhem and this like all those huge set pieces, like I remember being so struck by this little teeny heartbeat in the middle of them, which was the chemistry between Lizzie and Paul and those two characters. And there's something so true and so real and so small and so beautiful between the two of them, those characters. And I think that's why fans it really resonated with people, because in the middle of all of this grandiose, amazing superhero stuff that we have come to know and love, there was this teeny little love story. And I think that's why people are so excited about this series, is because it lets us drop into that and spend some more time with them that those big, beautiful movies have not afforded us to yet.
Wanda and Vision are an amazing love story. They have relatively little screen time in the Avengers films compared to, there's so many different characters and big events happening, but they make such an indelible impression, even in the short amount of time that we get to meet them. They are funny and charming. They clearly have this incredible connection, and they're so different. She suffered so much loss. She's fiery, she's powerful. He is this synthezoid who's a little bit human, but seems maybe more human than the rest of us, seems to know more about what it is to be human, and his calm, knowledgeable presence with her fiery, passionate one, it really is the ultimate opposites attract.
I think fans love Wanda and Vision's relationship because it's a really pure expression of love, and there's something that's really in the films has been really soft and gentle and born out of this AI character understanding how to feel. And so I think that's kind of just a beautiful story to get to watch, and there's something really gentle between the two of them. And now we get to launch them into a completely wild and different world and watch them be as normal as they can be in their wildest dreams.
I love Wanda and Vision's relationship so much. It's just so beautifully crafted, and WandaVision, the show, actually gives Paul and Lizzie, the actors, the space to dive deep into these characters and give us more than what we've been able to see in the theatrical films. And I think the fans respond to just the tenderness between the two. I mean, you're in the Marvel movies, you have things blowing up and fighting and shooting, which we love, but also this tenderness and this care and gentleness that Wanda and Vision have for one another is really beautiful to see.
When the series starts, we're going to find Wanda and Vision a little confused. They appear to have found themselves in a sort of idyllic American suburban 1950s black and white life, and they realize they're in some sort of sitcom. And then as the episodes progress, they begin to realize that they're hurtling through the American century, decade by decade, week by week. And, you know, Vision begins to suspect there's something not quite right about this town.
We find Wanda and Vision as a newly married couple who have just moved to the town of Westview, which is a very nice suburb. It's a suburban town of, it's a very nice suburban town, and I play Agnes, their next door neighbor. And she happens to be, in a very familiar way, the neighbor that just kind of pops by unannounced, offers a lot of advice, solicited and non, has a lot of, loves gossip and loves to kind of show her the ropes of this new town, and also kind of make fun of it.
The series begins with Wanda and Vision living an idyllic life in a sitcom America, and where it goes from there is the mystery of the show.
We find, as the series kicks off, Wanda and Vision living in the suburbs as two people in a relationship, and they are just trying to pass as normal as possible and hope that no one discovers their secret of being superheroes.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many. You know, sitcoms are so embedded in like my personhood as like a comfort place, I think, from when I was a kid. And so like I see so many, like, there's Ethel, there's Evan Nora, there's the guy from Seinfeld, can't remember his name. There's like Lenny and Squiggy, or there's so many of these in every single sitcom that we know and love. There's that neighbor character that's always there with just like friendly advice, wanted or not wanted, that always happens to plop themselves on the couch, and almost seems to like just be living in the house, nothing about their own personal life, but they're just there. And I feel like I was so fun to pay homage to all those amazing actors and characters.
The show is a director's dream. It requires recreating these sitcom classic television shows, as well as full MCU action, and also it will delve into a world that sort of merges those two as well. For me, it was an opportunity to use kind of every tool in my toolkit that I've collected directing comedy and drama and action over the years, and also to find some new tools, because this show is such an original piece that it required sort of constant innovation to keep up with it.
I thought it was when I first heard of the concept of this show, I thought it was bananas and brilliant. And Kevin and I have been talking about The Visions, which is a really great comic book series that I love, about the Vision in suburbia. And then also talking about the House of M, and it just felt like a really great mashup with some American sitcom stuff thrown in too.
I mean, I had them repeated to me a couple of times because it was very trippy. And then I was so juiced up and just inspired that Kevin Feige and all of them were going to take this kind of a artistic and creative just swing, because it is really truly unlike anything the MCU has ever done. And it is it's so multi-layered, and it is, I was just like mouth to the floor like, how are you going to pull this off? And I am so pleased to say that it has, so far what I've seen, has exceeded anything that I'm just so excited for the planet to see it.
When I first heard about the concept for WandaVision, it was with Kevin Feige and Lou Esposito, and I immediately just thought it was going to be a very fun and challenging way to tell a story. It's an amazing opportunity to kind of reinvent the wheel, and we get to challenge new audience members, hopefully, who don't know Marvel as well, and then we get to challenge our fans to watch a story unfold in a totally different way, but it is still 100% MCU through and through. But yeah, I immediately fell in love with the idea the moment I heard it.
When I first heard the concept for WandaVision, I thought, wow, this is a huge undertaking. And I'm also very curious how that works, paying homage to classic American television sitcoms and big epic Marvel movie, action movie. How do the two things come together? So my interest was definitely piqued, and then to read the scripts and actually talk to the creatives about it, my mind was blown, and I'm really excited for fans to get to go on this journey with us.
Well, there are many, and I think that you can it's really interesting if you start studying it like we had to. You see how different they are from where we begin in the 50s to where we end in the sort of aughts with, so we start with the Dick Van Dyke Show, and then Bewitched, and then we end up with sort of Malcolm in the Middle and Modern Family. And you go from this incredibly warm 1950s American exceptional optimism to this very cynical, quite cool in tone shows like Malcolm in the Middle and Modern Family in the 90s and the 2000s.
I prepared for this sitcom style by just watching a lot of them. As a child myself, so I was already born ready. And also we did a sitcom boot camp, all of us together, the cast, our director Matt Shakland and the writer Jack Schaefer. When we first got together to do this way back when, we all had like 3 weeks to rehearse and watch basically sitcoms for every era that we would be dropping into, for every genre. And so for the 50s, it was Dick Van Dyke. We watched a ton of Dick Van Dyke. For the 60s, it was Bewitched, and then onward and onward. But that's how we prepared. We had an amazing dialect coach by the name of Courtney Young, who just gifted us with so much auditory material, interviews, commercials, just source material from the 50s and then from the 60s on, so that we could just I would just be walking around listening to voices, and she was an enormous help of getting that exact voice, because it actually lives in a different place in your throat. So that was an enormous help. And then those costumes, I mean, Maya, the designer, is just a goddess. And once you put that corset on and you have to speak higher and wear those heels all the time and nylons, like, it's a whole other ball game. And it just makes me very grateful to be able to wear tennis shoes and sweatpants underneath this Zoom that you're watching right now. A lot of work.
There was a lot of preparation getting ready for WandaVision. We had to be as authentic as possible to the sitcoms that we were creating. We wanted to make sure that we avoided parody and that we really felt like we were bringing to life these shows the way they would have brought them to life back in the day. So designers, cinematographer, actors, everybody did a deep dive into sitcom television history. We studied episodes, we read books about the making of, we talked to people who we could, who had actually made them. And for the actors in particular, we did a sitcom boot camp where we went through and watched multiple episodes and tried on different styles and tones.
The preparation for all the sitcoms was started with boot camp. It started with a Matt Shakland, our fearless director leader, boot camp with Jack Schaefer, our creator. And we, as an ensemble, as a cast, we watched every single direct reference for each decade. And so we kind of associated each episode with one sitcom, and we would watch those episodes together. And then on top of it, you, as an actor, we're trying to tell these stories authentically through sitcom. So we're trying to recreate a real sitcom show that could have been filmed with the style and the tone and how we walk, how we dress, how we sound, and your mannerisms. And so that would change decade to decade. So that's physical, it's costumes, it's speech, it's where your voice comes from. So there's a lot of fun, dorky actor preparation that you get to do. And then the moment it comes into Malcolm in the Middle, everything becomes like super cynical. And then that transition was also equally as enjoyable as referencing Bewitched.
I think one of the things I love about this show is how I think everybody was given free rein to be incredibly creative, and we have some extraordinarily fastidious heads of department, like Jess Hall, who I've known for years and made a couple of films with, is the DP, and the amount of energy and effort and hours that were put into making sure that we had a incredibly accurate style of photography for each and every one of these eras, and that was across the board. But the costumes were incredibly accurate, hair and makeup, the wigs, and all the way through to dialect coaching for Lizzie specifically, to get that sort of strange mid-Atlantic thing that people did in American TV at the time. And indeed the decision by our brilliant director, Matt Shakland, who decided that the first episode had to be shot in front of a live studio audience. I was very resistant to that, but he pushed, and he was right, because it gave us that performative style that I think you could feel in those shows in the 1950s.
Yes, I mean, from every level in terms of production for this, the artists working behind the scenes to realize these eras were just mind-blowing. I mean, the production design was extraordinary, from every little detail in there. The costumes, as you could tell, Maya is just a wizard, and she just made such unbelievable, from the undergarments on, like you were in the period. She even dressed the background of the audience for our live audience. I mean, the camera operators, I mean, she outdid herself. Everybody, the hair, the makeup, my team was unbelievable. The best wigs I've ever, like all of it, like these artists that we worked with were incredible. And as I was talking before, Courtney Young, who was our dialect coach, really worked at not only just like going through different sounds, but just flooding our inboxes in the best way. As an actor, it's like my favorite thing, with source material from the actual era. So we got like, it was like commercials and interviews and sound bites and things that I would just be able to like listen to and kind of find the vibe that way. all of it. So from every department, we were just, for every era that we moved into, we were just like cocooned in that world and in that space, and really in that era. Like, I was just blown away by the artists that worked on this. Props, like, I mean, everybody was working at the top of their game.
We were very careful in our attention to detail. We wanted to make sure the palette was accurate for each era and each show, that the red in the 70s was the actual red we wanted. We looked at dialect coaching and coaching about just sort of physical presence, like how do you sit, how do you stand in different eras. Obviously wigs, hair was really important. Costuming using vintage fabrics. Our costume designer, Matt Rubio, did a brilliant job recreating these eras, but also making them feel very focused on Wanda and Vision as characters. And our production designer had to design basically the same house, both inside and out, in multiple different eras. So it's the same house, it's just changing with the style of the different eras.
The effort that went into every single department on this show was beyond anything I had seen. The thing that's so lovely about being a part of the Marvel universe is the amount of time that is put into, and detail that's put into our sets, that's put into our costumes. It's all it's some of the best craftsmanship that I've seen on a set ever. And it always continues to blow my mind in many ways. And then to take all that craftsmanship and really make it specific to every single decade, it was beautiful to watch, to pick out these vintage fabrics, and even just building the underpinnings of the costumes, to think about the wigs and the different cuts you had to have this certain type of curl level, and the different you don't even think about this, but the different types of false eyelashes that you'd wear, the shape of the nails. Like, there's so much detail that went into what you see, and even like the love that went into our set design and our props. We have one plant that Catherine brings over in the first episode, and that plant grows in every single episode, and you maybe would completely miss it, but it's there. So there's just all this, like, and our props guy, like Russell, he puts all these Easter eggs all over the place for our fans. And so the whole thing's just been kind of miraculous to watch it all come together. And I think it was one of the hardest jobs for every person on this show, because of having to change so many decades. You don't just have like one decade that you can rely on. Just even doing exterior scenes, and how the picket fences have to change and the flowers have to change. So you just don't think about those things.
If I am honest, my favorite costume was my ridiculous 1990s Halloween costume, which is an homage to the original Vision costume from the comics. And it made me look so ridiculous that it was very easy. I didn't have to work too hard for laughs.
Yes, I mean, I love that 50s costume so much. I mean, and it's so crazy because you can't see it. The black and white wardrobes are so beautiful, and if you were to see those in color, you can't believe how vivid and incredible they are. But because she knows exactly what colors, which is like beyond me, but because she knows what colors would pop the most in black and white and on that kind of, in that kind of camera, she was able to pick the perfect ones to like. And just, if you would have, it's amazing to think of us walking around in those costumes that would never even be seen in these incredible colors. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
I would say my favorite costume was the 70s, because I loved wearing a pregnant belly. I just thought it was so funny to watch, just like a dress spread and then have two legs sticking out from the bottom. So I think that was my favorite costume.
Okay. So when it came to shooting episode 1, I remember the day that Matt Shakland told Lizzie and I that we were going to shoot it in front of a live studio audience. And I was really recalcitrant. I dug my heels in. I was not keen on the idea. It had been 20 years since I'd been in front of an audience. And, but he was insistent, and it turns out that he was entirely right. There is a performative style in the Dick Van Dyke Show that you can feel that there is an audience in the room because there's an audience in the room, and they are projecting past the camera to that audience and playing for their laughs, which are in turn taped and the thing that we hear in the television show. And I think it really bonded everybody together. The crew were wearing costumes. We were, of course, were wearing costumes, and we were also running behind backstage to you know, bumping into each Catherine Hahn, falling over at the prop table, and then coming on stage, and I think it gave us that sense of style. It gave us a sense of fearlessness, because we were all there and thinking, and Tiana was in the audience because she's not in the first episode, and we were all like, well, I guess this is what the show is. So you were able to really let go and just go for it after that. It was a great experience.
Yes, so we shot the 50s episode in front of a live audience. The live audience, which was of course very daunting, but the positive of it, and you know, as an actor, it's like my dream, was that we were able to rehearse it together as a company, really, for like 3 weeks beforehand, and we were able to go through kind of like a sitcom boot camp almost. So we rehearsed it, I mean, to the T, because you know, all of those things are all, you know, obviously so much about just timing. It's like doors and yada 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 yada. It's like, and all the things that you see Wanda doing in the kitchen, like those were, it's like period effects. So it's like wires and you know, it's not like CGI or anything. It's all like wires and things like that. So it took a long time to rehearse. And the laughs that you hear are the laughs from the studio audience from the day that we shot it, which is also pretty incredible. Also, props to everybody that was sitting in there and kept that a secret for so long. I know you had to sign a gazillion things, but it's just pretty amazing that happened, and they that we were able to pull that off is pretty extraordinary. The script is written by Jack Schaefer. The scripts were written so to the era that they're in. So the jokes, especially in the 50s, are so charmingly baked into the 1950s that I think that a lot of us were like wondering if a modern audience watching it live was going to find it funny. And we were so surprised once we got there as to how many laughs were coming. Like, it was just such a charming, delightful, beautiful, nostalgic day, and we were racing around behind the scenes with quick changes and props, and I mean, it was mayhem in the best kind of a way. And it was like, I again can't believe that was my introduction to the MCU.
Part of our goal of being as authentic as possible was the decision to shoot episode 1 in front of a live studio audience. Some of our touchstones were the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, and those shows were done in front of a live audience, and it really contributed to the style of the show, that adrenaline of going out and doing it live in front of an audience. And the audience was a character as well. Those laughs were real. They were alive, reacting to what they were seeing, and how they reacted affected the performance. So it was really important to me that our first episode of WandaVision have that same spark, that same lightning in a bottle. We rehearsed it like a play, and then we went out and did it in front of an audience. The only difference between our audience and the Dick Van Dyke audience is they had all signed NDAs.
The episode 1 being shot in front of a live audience was so terrifying, but it was so fun. There was so much adrenaline. it was a perfect way to thrust us into sitcom land. It really ripped the Band-Aid off. And it was complicated though, because it's not like theater. You're not playing to an audience, you're playing to the camera, but there is an audience that you kind of want to play to. So it confused my brain a bit, but it really launched us bravely into full throttle sitcom mode. And it's an experience I'll never have again, I don't think. So it was just I'll keep it close to me for a long time.
I have been a huge fan of Lizzie Olsen's for a bazillion years, and I was so excited to get to work with her and to know her. I think she's such an extraordinary actor and has such integrity and depth as a human being and as a performer. And Paul as well, like the both of their chemistry together in the MCU is so tender and so true, and especially in the middle of all of those beautiful set pieces and all of those superheroes, to have like that real true thing, which is that love story. I was so excited to be able to work with the both of them as performers, because I just think they're extraordinary. They're both so, they check all the boxes that I as a performer is like the way to my heart. Like they're incredibly hard workers, they're diligent, they're craftspeople, they're not precious, they look after themselves, like they just want to work, they're decent, good people. I'm just Lizzie, I got to spend a lot of time with, and she's just a tremendous human being. I care about her deeply, and I just think she's also an extraordinary performer.
Working with Paul and Lizzie on WandaVision has been a huge treat. They are such generous human beings and fun and funny, and just watching them get to dive deep into these characters and be given the space and opportunity to really explore more of their relationship has really been a treat.
So when you're making these big movies, Avengers and so forth, Civil War and all of that, there are so many characters that necessarily your time on screen is curtailed, and you're having to pack an awful lot into a very short amount of screen time. Whereas there's something really expansive about this many hours of television that allowed Lizzie and I to really drill down into each of our characters and also their relationship, and it was a really fun time.
The big screen stories are amazing, but in 2 hours, you have a limit to how deep you can go into telling a story. But with WandaVision, we're able over 9 episodes to go really deep into Wanda and Vision's relationship, and to hopefully move them forward into a place where one or both can venture off into other MCU properties.
The 9-episode format of our show allowed for so many in-depth realizations for both my character and Paul's character. And I truly believe that in from the first episode to the last episode, the whole fabric of this show is built on what we have already made. And so to get to kind of burst that open and get really specific with her life experiences and his throughout this show was really an incredible opportunity for both of us, and it allowed for us to complicate these characters even more than we've been able to. So it was, and to get to work with Paul is always the greatest joy. Yeah.
The moment I found out I was going to be a part of the NCU, I was filled with so much joy and excitement. I literally thought I was an actual superhero and tried to jump down some stairs. But thankfully, my family calmed me down and said, okay, let's just breathe and be excited in that way.
I found out I was going to be part of the MCU after a meeting I had, top secret meeting, which was also a whole new world for me, with the director, Matt Shakland, the amazing writer, Jack Schaefer, and our producer, Mary Lavanos, in an office at Marvel, where I was escorted in and escorted out. Everything felt very top secret, and they laid out the idea for this show to me. And I was, in my wildest dreams, could not imagine a character or entrance in this world that would be more fun, more trippy, more surreal, or more delicious than this one. I mean, it's just, can't believe it. Still can't believe it. Can't believe I get to see I'm in the MCU, and that my first appearance is walking through a door in a 1950s black and white sitcom. Just makes zero sense to me.
Yes. So Lizzie and I have been making these movies for quite a bit now, and we got to know each other really slowly. And I guess slowly over time, I slowly realized, it dawned on me that she'd never been late on set once, and I love that. And it turns out that we have exactly the same work ethic, and she's fastidious. She always comes to set with an idea, and believe me, that's rarer than you would think. And so do I. And so we're both professional and really want to work at it and really want it to be the focus, of what we're doing. That's why we're there, and we work really hard at it, and she works really hard at it. And I think we, by this point, have come to trust each other so much that it was just very easy to take big risks.
Elizabeth Olsen is a marvel, no pun intended. She is capable of doing anything. Same with Paul Bettany. They are such amazing actors. Their ability to do different tones and styles, to shift from drama to comedy effortlessly, sometimes in the same scene. They have incredible chemistry together, which I think is part of what makes that relationship work so much. And they're fearless. They are fearless actors. They're willing to do anything and do the silliest thing, to also the most adventurous stunts, things like that. They're amazing. I was lucky to work with them.
Getting to work with Paul for this long has been so phenomenal. He and I think we both feel very lucky to have one another. We work very similarly, and we discovered that during Civil War. I asked him if he could run lines with me, or he asked me for something we were shooting next week, and we had both already memorized our scene, and that's not the norm. And so with this show, he and I were able to constantly communicate and plan, and Matt Shakland and Jack Schaefer were so welcoming of our ideas of what was already there, and he and I just, like, that was just how our brains worked. Every morning was just trying to plan for what was happening next week and how to do it, or how to make it better, or what we loved about it. And it's so much fun to get to work with someone who is as invested and excited, or even brings that out in you because of their own investment. And so it's a great experience getting to work with Paul, and also he's fun and funny and kind. And it's really important for us, when we're the lead actors on a set, for people to treat each other kindly. And and hopefully that makes people enjoy their jobs and their lives more. And so I think we try to put that out in the crew every day as well. And I think it ended up being a really special experience for all of us, even with all of the crazy challenges that were thrown at us during filming.
Paul Bettany comes from theater, which I think is part of what made him so successful, jumping around all of these different styles. They were very theatrical by nature. The Dick Van Dyke Show, some of the other sitcoms that we were looking at. And even though he's known for incredibly nuanced, beautiful film performances, he has that theatrical ability to kind of fill a room and adjust his performance to whatever the room and the moment needs. And also, I have to say, he's a ham, the most amazing, wonderful ham, incredibly funny. I'm so excited for the world to see how funny Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are.
I think that the fans are going to love WandaVision. It's fun, it's wacky, it's wild. It deals with some really heavy elements like grief and loss. And then you have the tenderness of love. And then you have the big epic action Marvel movie side of it. So there's a lot to cling on to, and just hold on for this ride, guys. So not only do you get to see Monica in WandaVision, it was just announced that Monica Rambeau will also be in Captain Marvel 2. She'll be joining Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel in Captain Marvel 2. So I'm really excited about that.